Well, welcome to podcast number 7 of the Zaius Report with myself, Warren. And I'm hoping the sound quality of this podcast is a little bit better because I have got myself a new microphone. So, yeah, I'm hoping I'm sounding a little bit clearer than I have been in past podcasts. So, anyway, we'll give it a try for the next few podcasts and see how it goes. Now, I've got some great movies to talk about this podcast. Some really fun ones and quite a good sort of cross-selection of various different out there, ludicrous, but always fun, whether they be blood-soaked or whether they be comedy. Whatever they are, they're great fun. Just love cult movies. So, sit back. Put on your fez, put on your smoking jacket, light up your pipe, pour yourself a whatever is your favourite beverage, and I hope you enjoy the show. So give me 2 seconds, and I'll be right back with movie number 1. Now, our first movie is some horror. You've got to love to start with a little bit of horror. But this is horror from France. So I'm sorry to everybody everyone out there that doesn't like to watch a dubbed movie. You're going to have to if your only language is English, because this is only available in a French dub with English subtitles. But trust me, it's worth it. It really is. It's a great, great little movie. And it also plays with a bit of history as well, which is what makes it it gives it that little bit of an edge. Now, it's called Stranded, or to give it its proper French title, Dejins. So, now, Dejins, what does that mean? Well, Dejins are sort of our adversary, if you like, in this, our spooky supernatural sort of entities, and that's where the name obviously comes from. But it seems to have been released around the world under the name Stranded for some reason. Don't really quite know, but there you go. Now, it's from 2010 and was all filmed in Morocco, but is meant to be set in the old French Algeria. In fact, the movie is actually set during the Algerian War of Independence, which of course was between 1954 and 1962. And our film is set just several days before the 13th of February 1960. Now, why is that date so important? Well, if you're French, you'll probably know why that date is so important. If you're Algerian, you'll definitely know why that date is so important. For everybody else, I don't want to tell you what happened on that day in Algeria. I want you to Google it, because if I tell you, it's going to give away the ending of the movie. So I can't do that. But it's vitally important to the plot of our film. Now, it starts, obviously, as I said, a few days before the 13th of February, and we see a lone French soldier in panic and distress walking along a road in Algeria, very, very disturbed, firing his machine gun into the air, into the sand dunes, for absolutely no reason. There's nobody around him. And he's picked up by the French army, and he's taken off to a camp in the desert in Algeria, where he's obviously, tells his story of what has just happened. And the French officers who are interviewing him clearly don't believe this story. But then, of course, as with a lot of these films, we now go back into time to see what actually did happen to him. Now, we then find ourselves with a group of French soldiers. We don't really know what unit they're from. I've seen a lot of people doing reviews on this film saying they're French Foreign Legionnaires. Well, I can tell you right now what I do know about the French military. These are not French legionnaires. They're either colonial infantry or they're metropolitan infantry fighting in the war in Algeria. Now, they're sent off on a mission to recover a briefcase from a crashed aircraft which has gone down in the middle of the desert. And apparently whatever is in this briefcase is very, very important. So they head off and they, of course, get the briefcase. And but after they've got it, they start to get attacked by the rebels, the Algerian independence fighters. And they then get caught up in a sandstorm and have to bed down for the night. Well, of course, with this sandstorm, they've got themselves now totally lost and have absolutely no idea where they are. And this is a real problem. But then our young hero, or I don't know if I'd say our young hero, but the one who we were introduced to earlier in the film, sees a weird shape, an image of a person almost walking through the sands of the desert. But it doesn't seem human. What is it? And then it seems to hover over one of the French soldiers in his section and seems to take some sort of mental control of his friend, who then runs off into the desert, never to be seen again until a little bit later in the movie. So something weird is going on. We now know that this is not some sort of war movie. This is a ghost movie. This is a horror movie. They then end up, they find a village, and within this village there seem to be no men, just women. They don't really think that's all that unusual, because all the men are probably either off working in Algiers, or they're gone off to fight, with the rebel army. But while they're in this village, these weird, ghostly spirit creatures start to try to play with their minds, try to take over their minds, even try to get them to kill each other. And they are becoming more and more terrified. And of course, as the movie progresses, more and more of our cast members start to be killed off. So it's really, really quite exciting. It's got all of that suspense that you would expect from a normal sort of spooky horror ghost sort of movie. But then because we tie in the history element of where they are and what's about to happen in a couple of days, it makes the movie, I think, a lot more believable and a lot more interesting. The script's pretty good. The acting is pretty good. And of course, this whole thing throughout the entire movie is what is inside this briefcase. What is making this briefcase so vitally important? And as I said, it has to do with that date. So if you really want to watch this movie seriously, I almost suggest maybe don't Google it until you've seen the movie. I'll leave it up to you. But this movie, the Djinn, or Stranded, whichever title you'd like to give it, it's great. It's some great horror from France. I really recommend this one. I've got nothing bad whatsoever, to say about it. Spooky, and you've got a little bit of gunfights and stuff in there thrown in as well for a bit of action adventure. It's got absolutely everything. Highly recommend it.
Oh, we're just careening off the track.
This is going to be a long edit.
Oh, God, that's staying in there.
Okay.
The Only Funny to Us podcast, with brand new episodes every Monday night at 8 at onlyfunnytous.com.
Well, after some serious French horror, let's just change the pace a little bit and talk about a movie here from 1953, directed by Phil Tucker, called Robot Monster. Has often been described as the second worst movie ever made. Now, I think that that's maybe a little bit harsh, because I have actually seen a whole lot worse films than this. But then again, I don't know. It's definitely, if it's not the second worst, it might be in the top 10, because it is absolutely appalling. But the beauty of this movie is because it is so bad, you can't keep your eyes off it. It's absolutely hilarious. And to watch this with a group of friends and maybe a little bit of alcohol, it just, honestly, it's just so much fun. So what is Robot Monster all about? Well, obviously from 1953, B movie, so of course it's in black and white. Now, it was shot over 4 days, which, says a lot about the movie. But interestingly enough, it was released in 3D, and it actually made quite a substantial amount of money, considering the very, very small budget that this movie actually had to be made. Now, it starts off with a group or 2 scientists who are in the countryside of California, and they're sort of looking at cave paintings and this sort of thing. And at the same time, we have a family of a mother with 2 daughters and her son, Johnny, who is, I suppose, in a sense, the apart from the robot monster, is our main star of this movie. And Johnny and the family meet up with these scientists, and they have a bit of a talk to Johnny and the family, about archaeology and all of that sort of stuff. And then Johnny goes off with his family, and they enjoy their picnic, and he falls asleep. Now, when he wakes up, we find a very different world. We find a world which is... there are no people left anymore, except for the group of people that I just explained. And suddenly, living in a cave is our robot monster, our alien who is trying to take over the world. Now, he's just committed this massive act of genocide, and that is killed every single human except for, obviously, I'm repeating myself, but the family and the 2 scientists. But of course, the scientists have come up with a special serum. How they've done this during a picnic, I have absolutely no idea. But they've come up with a special serum, which means that they haven't died. Now, a robot monster, I'll just try to explain him to you. He is basically an actor in a gorilla suit with a diving helmet on his head. Yeah, that's and apparently the actor who played the role actually made the gorilla suit himself. So this is just, it's pure class, it really is. Now, the robot monster comes from a race of beings called the Romans, and this particular terrifying creature that we have to deal with is called XJ2. And he's often in communication with his boss, who is another actor with a diving helmet on his head, dressed in a gorilla suit, referred to as the Great Guidance. Now, the way that they communicate with each other is via some sort of, I don't know, it looks like some old ham radio set, but it is connected to a bubble-making machine. Now, I'm not joking, it's a bubble-making machine. It blows bubbles everywhere. And in fact, the bubble-making machine even gets a credit at the end of this movie. Now, so of course, our family and the scientists have to try to survive, have to try to take on the robot monster, because the robot monster can't actually... kill off our human family. Of course, the Great Guidance gets very angry with him and then decides to come down to Earth to sort this situation out himself. And somehow he's able to bring dinosaurs back and make... Oh, God, it just is so out there. It's got to be seen to believe, or to be believed. The other thing too is that our monster Roman XJ2 falls in love with the older sister Alice, with Johnny's older sister, Alice. Now, I'm really not too sure how they expected they were going to, maybe repopulate the Earth or some such thing. It's probably a little bit difficult, wearing that gorilla suit, but it's just so out there. It's just absolutely fantastic. I cannot recommend this movie. Recommend it enough, I should say. If you get yourself some alcohol, get yourself some friends, sit down, watch it. You'll hate it, but you'll love it. The first time I saw this was actually as a very young man, and I went to an old movie cinema which doesn't exist anymore, the original Valhalla cinema, and in Melbourne, and it was playing as a triple feature with The Blob and also with Plan 9 from Outer Space. And it was such a fun night because this was an old cinema that still had wooden floors, so people could actually quite literally roll their jaffas down the aisle. People went in there with light pens and they would, put things up on the screen. People would jump up on stage and start acting out the dialogue. It was just so much fun to actually see. It was one of the best movie experiences I've had in a very long time. And so it's another reason why I absolutely adore this film. So look, Robot Monster, as I said, voted second worst movie ever made in history, but I'm still telling you, check it out. Seriously, it's worthwhile. And the other thing too is it's free domain now, so you can actually watch it on YouTube. You don't have to pay a cent. Please, promise me at least one of you will watch this film. Now I think it's time for a creature feature. Yes, a giant monster movie. And what better than Mega Piranha? Or maybe it should have really been called Mega Lunacy, because really this film, by about 3/4 of the way through it has just got so out there. But anyway, it's great fun. Now, Mega Piranha, as I said, from 2010, directed by Eric Forsberg, and it was brought out on the same year, of course, 2010, as Piranha 3D. Of course, many of you will have gone to the cinema to see that. And it was intentionally brought out at the same time to try to, I suppose, capitalise on all of the talk of Piranha 3D. But this is a very, very different movie. It's much... this is... a true offering from the asylum. So it's more serious. It's not a piss take as Piranha 3D sort of was. It was Piranha 3D, of course, was a serious movie copying the genre or format of a B movie. This, of course, is an actual B movie. And, of course, when you hear the stars, you'll get a fair idea what I mean by that. Now, our movie stars Tiffany, Paul Logan, and Barry Williams. So, are we on a winner or what? I mean, Barry Williams, yes, Greg Brady from the Brady Bunch, all grown up, and of course Tiffany, who obviously is no longer alone. Some of you will get that joke. Anyway. And Paul Logan, who of course is in tons of these movies. He was of course in Curse of the Komodo that we spoke about, I think it was last week. So, 100% beefcake, there for the eye candy quota, I suppose you would say. But he's good. I really like him. He's ideal in these movies. Now, it's set in Venezuela, where we have scientists who are studying these piranha and so forth, and a group of them because of environmental vandalism and so forth, escape, and they get out into the waterway, and they start basically, eating and destroying everything in their path. Now, that's a pretty normal sort of piranha movie, and this movie would follow that sort of path, I suppose, very much, if the fact that these piranha weren't genetically modified. Yes, so they start to grow. And when I say grow, they don't just get bigger, they don't just turn into the size of a cod, they don't just turn into a size of a shark. No, in the end, these fish turn into the size of blue whales, okay? They are enormous. And of course, the problem is, how can they be stopped? Well, Tiffany, of course, is in Venezuela, and Barry Williams, who's meant to be sort of a politician sort of thing, sends his man, Paul Logan, in to try to see if he can solve the problem. Well, Paul Logan and Tiffany team up, sort of the people on the ground, and they are, of course, our heroes, to see if they can actually stop it. Most of Barry Williams' shots are really just of him walking around an old disused power station, speaking to Paul Logan on his mobile telephone. And that's really about all Barry Williams does. I think they could have actually have shot his scenes in about 20 minutes. But anyway, it's Barry Williams, so who cares? Now, after these piranhas escape, they start to move north out of Venezuela and out into the open ocean. And then, of course, they're on their way to attack Florida. So Barry Williams calls in the Navy. Yes, the Navy hopefully will be able to stop these giant killer fish. Well, of course, they've now got to such ludicrous sizes that they're quite easily able to chomp a battleship in half. And that is actually literally what happens. The other interesting thing too, and I suppose, being a cheap bead raider, is of course the battleships, or the ships which are sent, depending on what scene you're watching, they're never the same ship. 1 minute it's a battleship, the next minute it's a destroyer, the next minute it's a battleship again, then it's a minesweeper, then it's a destroyer, then it's a battleship again. Because all they've mostly got is stock footage, and I just don't think they care. It's all part of the fun of it, isn't it? So the big question, of course, now is, will our heroes be able to stop the Mega Piranha before, they basically take over the world? Well, I think we know what's probably going to happen, but I still won't give it away. I'll let you actually watch it. But the other person that we've got in this film is called Colonel Diaz, because we've got to have some sort of corrupt, military type, in this movie. And, of course, we do. He plays the bad guy who seems to be far more obsessed with taking out Tiffany and Paul Logan than he does with actually trying to save his country from these mega piranha. But, hey, it's a movie. That's the way it happens. So, look, really, this is a good one, Mega Piranha. If you like the stuff that you see on the Sci-Fi Channel, the movies by the Asylum and so forth, then you're going to love this. You're going to know exactly what to expect. Special effects which are absolutely appalling, acting which is a hell of a lot better, but and a story which is just ridiculous, but it's so much fun. These creature feature monster movies, I'm so glad that they're back in proper production now. It's not like maybe 10 years ago where you used to get a few every now and again. They're just coming out every week now, it seems. And it makes my day. I'm so happy. So this will probably turn up on the Sci-Fi Channel at some stage. So please check it out. Mega Piranha from 2010. I mean, it's got Barry Williams and Tiffany in it. You gotta love that.
I worked in the garden center, and a lady came in, and we had the flowers or the plants, and she asked me how much the chlamydias were.
The Only Funny to Us podcast, available now at onlyfunnytous.com.
Well, I think by now you'd have a pretty good idea that I love a good or a bad Amazon movie. If it's an Amazon movie, I'm going to watch it. So, I got another one for you today, and it is Anera, the Jungle Girl. And this one is starting to seriously become my new Sheena. I absolutely fell in love with this movie. It is so appallingly bad, but it is just eye candy after eye candy after eye candy. It is just brilliant. I absolutely love it. Now, it's from 2012, and I really can't list the actors and so forth in this because there aren't any. In fact, the main star is called Carly Danger. Now, Carly Danger, if you don't know who she is, I'm not really all that surprised because she is a foxy boxer or foxy wrestler. And in fact, most of the Amazons in this movie are in fact many of her, opponents and teammates and so forth from Foxy Wrestling. So there is probably a very good chance that you won't have heard of them before. But look, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. I don't care how bad the acting and the script is in this. Oh, God, it's good. Now, it follows the path of the modern Amazon, as I've spoken about on a couple of podcasts, where, they're not evil. Amazons are now good. They're environmental. They're about women's rights and so forth. Basically as, I suppose, Wonder Woman is. And that's really where the Amazons are in this movie. Now, it starts with on a sort of a jungle island, and we're getting a speech from a mercenary about how they're going to do horrible things to women and all the rest of it. And he's then killed by another mercenary who saves a child and takes the child away with them. Now, the next scene after that is, from what we can gather, of course, is the child is now all grown up and she is at the funeral of her father. And, of course, this is Kelly Danger, who, of course, was that jungle girl who has been brought up by the mercenary in the United States. Now, this film takes quite a long time to seriously get going. It's meant to be an Amazon, movie, but I swear for about the first 20 minutes, you actually think it's a statement about this woman's fall into depression and alcoholism after the death of her father. It is just basically endless shots of her drinking, being depressed, getting into fights, with a musical soundtrack laid over the top. It's absolutely quite weird. We still have not seen any Amazon women as yet. But she is approached then by a person that knew her father. And this guy basically runs a mercenary outfit. And he knows that she, of course, has been trained by her father, in the martial arts and, with weapons and all this sort of thing. So he asks her to come and join his mercenary group, who are going to go and parachute into this island, which of course just happens to be the same island that she was born. So we can see something's going to happen here. And to basically be a reconnaissance unit and find out where all these, environmental terrible Amazons are before the main force comes in and wipes out everybody on the island, so they can then go and strip mine it, for all its resources and so forth. she agrees, and she's going to go along. But on the way, the plane crashes, and all of this reconnaissance team, other than herself, are killed. And she's then taken captive by the Amazon women. So now at least the film's starting to get going. Don't worry, it's only taken about 25 minutes for us to get to this point. So this is, of course, now where the entire outfit of every single member of the cast is basically just a bikini, and it doesn't change for the rest of the movie. Now, she then, of course, bonds with with all the rest of our Amazons and so forth who were there, and it's then discovered that she is, of course, this child, and, of course, the woman who was killed by the mercenaries originally, her mother was the queen, and so, of course, Carly Danger is, of course, the queen of the Amazons, and she then works with them, and she is then going to help lead them to defend the island and their Amazon female rights against the terrible male oppressors who want to strip mine the island. And, of course, then you know that we're going to have some, amazing battles and all the rest of it. Well, we don't really have these amazing battles. We've got lots of sword play. Interesting, nobody seems to want to actually just, come in with a machine gun and shoot everybody. They actually decide that it'd be much easier and maybe a lot more fun to do it with swords. And so, of course, they're all, get into this sword play. Now, I'm still not quite sure how these women living on this jungle island living in grass huts with absolutely no industry or any such thing are able to cast steel swords and weapons. Look, I've got absolutely no idea, but then who cares? They're in bikinis. What does it really matter? I've really fallen in love with this movie. As I said, it takes quite a long time to actually get going. It really only about half of the movie is actually about all the Amazon antics. The rest is really about her depression and alcoholism while she's living in the United States. It almost seems like they tried to make some sort of realistic statement about modern life, but without the money and without the actors and without the script, they just really couldn't do it. The acting is really, really bad, I have to admit, but who cares? It's an Amazon movie, and it seriously has become one of my favourites that I just think I want to sit down and watch every couple of weeks. I've just fallen in love with it. So look, please check it out. Inara, the Jungle Girl, from 2012. For me, it's going to become one of my ultimate all-time bad movie classics. I'm so glad I've got it on DVD. I'm just waiting for the release on Blu-ray because I'll be buying it again. Now, it wouldn't be a true Zaius report talking cult movies if we didn't have an Aaron Brown movie to talk about. And, of course, today's no exception. We've got one. And it's from 2002. Called Mummy Raider. Now, of course, because it's from 2002, Aaron Brown is still using the name Misty Monday. But that's kind of cool, because that's when the really outrageous movies he was making came out anyway. And this one is absolutely no exception. With the name Mummy Raider, you're going to get a bit of an idea what to expect, especially too when you know that the cast is Aaron Brown, Darren Kane, who of course is, she's even used as the logo for Seduction Cinema that makes a lot of these movies, so of course she's going to be in it, and Ruby Lakota, I think her name is. Sorry, my glasses still haven't arrived. Yes, I'm rather angry about this. But then again, this is Australia. They said a couple of days. Well, of course, in Australian slang, that means a couple of months. So hopefully they'll be here for the Nets podcast and I can read better. But anyway, Mummy Raider. I shouldn't digress. What are we talking about? Well, of course, it's a play on Tomb Raider. That's kind of obvious. But because it's produced by Seduction Cinema, we know that basically it's going to be nudity, nudity, and a lot more nudity. And, who's going to complain about that? Not me, for one, anyway. Now, our movie starts set in some sort of old castle in Berlin. Well, I really wasn't aware that Berlin was full of these old, hidden castles. It's a city, for goodness sake. But anyway, it's meant to be in Germany. And we have our terrible, evil professor, played by Ruby, who is trying to restart the Third Reich, this time as the Fourth Reich, by trying to resurrect a mummy from ancient Egypt who apparently has all the secrets of world domination. Now, even though this pharaoh wasn't able to dominate the entire world when they were pharaoh, doesn't really seem to be that important, but of course the Nazis want to bring this mummy back to get all the information to conquer the world. Now, Darren Kane and her father, who is an archaeologist, have been taken prisoner by Ruby, and they believe that they have the power to bring this mummy back to life. And but of course, while they're all strapped up, refusing to give away the information, we don't have to worry, because Erin Brown, yes, Misty Monday, the Mummy Raider, is on her way to save the day. And she does it in true style, wearing a pair of leather hot pants and a leather bikini top, which is, kind of cool. So she breaks in, and of course, we have then an huge amount of gunplay, and I have to admit, it's actually not too bad. The shootout firefights for such a cheap movie are actually pretty well done, but interestingly enough, cardboard boxes can stop bullets. So there you go. That's just a bit of research that this movie has passed on. Don't worry about armoured fighting vehicles in Afghanistan. Just dress everybody in cardboard boxes. You'll be safe. Now, Misty, of course, then the Mummy Raider, manages to kill all of the Nazis, and then she, of course, gets Ruby, our evil doctor, straps her down into the chair, and releases our archaeologist, our professor, and all is going to be good. But the movie's only halfway through. It hasn't finished yet, because, of course, now we need to have the huge lesbian love scene, which goes on for about 25 minutes. And then we get the credits. Yeah, it's one of those movies. Look, it's really, really good fun. And if you love the work of Erin Brown or Misty Monday, then you'll really like this one. It's also pretty short. It's only about 45, 50 minutes, so it's not going to take a huge amount of time out of your day. Interestingly enough, about the only way you can watch this movie is on DVD, and the DVD package, even though the movie's, as I said, only about 45 minutes, interestingly enough, if you combine all the extra features, all the outtakes, the interviews, and all the rest of it, it goes for almost about 2 hours. So it's still pretty good value for money. Yeah, look, it's great. The other thing, too, I love about this movie, and I'm going to give it away because for this sort of film, I don't think it really matters, is that how are they going to stop this evil mummy now that it's come to life? What will Misty Monday do? How will they stop it? Well, it's pretty easy. One bullet to the head. That's it! That's how she stops it! Oh, look, it's great fun. Look, I can't recommend it enough. If you're a fan of anything that's produced by Seduction Cinema, if you're a fan of Erin Brown, then definitely check this one out. It's not one for the kids. It's definitely one for the adults. But, I can't recommend it enough. Now, one movie I've been wanting to talk about for absolute ages is something which has been an ongoing joke with a number of my school friends ever since we left school, and that is the movie Inseminate. Now, this is it's absolutely wonderful, but it's got a lot of very, very bad press over the years, and I'll explain why in just a moment. Now, it's from 1981, directed by Norman Warren, and is in fact a UK-Hong Kong co-production. So, one of the things here is, you can imagine from 1981, half British, half Hong Kong. Yeah, the special effects leave a little bit to be desired, considering, of course, that a movie that it's always compared with is Alien from 1979, and, of course, that was a movie which we spoke about a couple of podcasts ago, was, in fact, a pinnacle movie. It was a movie that changed everything that would follow in regards to sci-fi and horror, simply because of the special effects. Now, I suppose when we talk about Alien, I remember hearing one person actually review Alien many years ago, and actually said the only thing that makes Alien so incredibly amazing is the special effects. If you were to remove them from the film, then it really isn't any better or any worse than any other sort of alien horror movie that came before. And there's a lot of truth to that. But of course, because Inseminate, which has a very similar plot, I suppose, if you like, to Alien, came out only 2 years later, it's often been sort of described as Britain's answer to Alien. But that's not really true at all. If you even think about the plot of Alien, well, it's not that dissimilar to the movie going back to the 1950s, The Thing. I mean, we have a group of people trapped in an area being hunted down by an alien. It's really, it's been done in hundreds of movies. So to say that Inseminate, in using the same concept, is ripping off Alien, well then you may as well say that Alien is ripping off The Thing. So I think that whole argument is really kind of silly. Now, to talk about the film, that's really what we're here to do. Now, it stars Judy Gleason, who I have to admit as a teenager I was absolutely in love with, as well as her sister, Sally Gleason, who you remember from many, the Carry On movies and Bless This House and so forth. But Judy Gleason, of course, the older sister, and, yes, anyway, we won't talk about teenage lust. Also, Robin Clark, Stephanie Beecham, Victoria Tennant, and quite a number of other British actors who, when you see them, you will remember them. Now, it takes place on a planet in the future where there is a science station, I suppose you like, called the 12 Xeno Project. And they discover all of these caves and tunnels underneath the planet, which they realise have been built by another intelligent species, so in other words, aliens. But there's no aliens there, there's just the tunnels, the remnants of this civilization. But when they're in the tunnels, they find these very weird crystals, and of course they want to find out more about these crystals. They want to know what's so special about them. But unfortunately, while trying to get them, Judy Gleason is out on an expedition with another member of the space station, with the expedition crew, if you like, and they are attacked by this giant alien creature, who we don't really see. All we just see is lots of blood splatter and screaming. We don't actually see the creature at all. But her offsider is killed, basically ripped apart, and then Judy Gleason is taken away to some weird place where she is, yes, well, you guessed it from the name of the film, inseminated by the alien, and of course becomes pregnant. Now, she's then released and goes back to the her fellow scientists and so forth. But of course, her mind is now starting to go into weird places. And she is now, of course, wanting to protect her unborn alien children. And so she even starts to murder a number of the inhabitants of this, I keep saying space station, but this collective of scientists who are on the planet. Now, when her alien children are born, and I suppose this is a big difference too between this movie and Alien, is that these creatures are 20 years out of date in regards to their actual special effects. Don't expect anything like the alien creature. These are still just latex puppets, okay? It's nothing like, obviously, what we got in 1979. Now, these creatures then, of course, start to kill everybody, and, of course, Judy Gleason helps as well. And then the question now is, of course, can everybody who's left kill off these aliens and, of course, also kill off Judy Gleason, because she's just as dangerous. Look, it's good. I really say to people, give this a try. Don't fall for this stuff about it's a rip-off of Alien. It's not, okay? It's just another, we're all trapped in an isolated place being hunted down by an alien-type movie. Give it a try. Yep, the special effects, still leave a little bit to be desired, but it's 1981, guys. I mean, what do we seriously expect? And also, it's a British movie, so, it's not going to have anywhere near the budget as, what, Hollywood would be able to offer at the same time. So, it's one of my personal favourites. As I said, this in-joke about the movie Inseminate goes back to when I was at school. So, please, check it out, Inseminate. I think you'll find that it's much better than people have told you. Okay, well, that's basically a wrap for another podcast. Podcast number 7 of the Zaius Report, talking cult movies. And a little bit shorter than usual. I think I've just, I've sped through them a little bit too quick this time. I'll try to change that, because as I said, trying to keep the podcast at around about, an hour or something like that. Try not to go under that time. Now, some shout outs as always. Want to thank the wonderful and charming Alana Evans for the use of music on this podcast. So thank you, Alana. Want to, of course, thank the guys at Only Funny to Us for all their help and all their support. And they do actually give quite a lot and they actually give quite a lot of help and support to this podcast, and I'm very appreciative to that. So, of course, check them out at OFTU Podcast on Twitter, where you'll find all the links. Of course, also Ramona, thank you as well. She's been extremely helpful, especially in some upcoming stuff, which I won't talk about just yet, where certain software is required, and she has been very, very helpful with that. So, of course, please check her out with her podcasts at Sports Gal Pal. That's Sports GALPAL, where you can listen to her podcasts there. So, look, that's the shout-outs and thank yous. Now, I've had some fantastic movies actually arrive in the mail over the last week, some things that I was hanging out for. My Kiyo Mizutani collection actually arrived with Weather Woman and numerous other movies in there. So I think we might actually be talking about some of those next week. Really looking forward to that. And also, I've been waiting for this film for ages, and I finally actually bought it. And that, of course, was the remake of Attack of the Giant Leeches. So I think we might actually do a bit of a double feature next week on the original Attack of the Giant Leeches from the 1950s, and then, of course, the latest remake, because I absolutely love the original, and so I'm really looking forward to the remake of this movie. Yep, that's about it. So thanks, guys, for listening. This was podcast number 7. Please, I hope you come back for podcast number 8. And remember too, of course, that there has been a change in the podcast upload time. It was, of course, on 9:30, something like that, on Thursday nights, Australian Eastern Standard Time. I've now changed that, of course, to Sunday night, 9 to 9:30 it depends a little bit on how long it takes to upload. That's why I can't be precise on Eastern Australian time. So basically Sunday night rather than Thursday night just makes it a little bit easier for me with various work commitments. So thanks for listening. I hope you come back for podcast number 8 next week. And as always, I will leave you with the wonderful Lana Evans and Perfect.